What's up, everybody? Rothstein here, Betting Public Sports Show. I'm your beloved host, Fame Rothstein, a.k.a. Michael Snackson, a.k.a. Bay O Wolf, a.k.a. Hacksaw Jim Thuggin, a.k.a. Malcolm Excellence, a.k.a. Yves Saint Croissant. Today is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Leave comments. Share the video if you'd be so inclined. Apologize. I'm out here looking like a fledgling Grizzly Adams. Sometimes I don't get my hair cut. Today I was supposed to, and there was a hella snowstorm here in the Republic of Cincinnati. But anyway, like I said, like and subscribe to the show. I just want to talk to you about a couple videos, really three that I saw today. But one was, about Kenyon Martin and Draymond Green, the Kenyon Martin, former NBA player, and Draymond Green, current player for the Golden State Warriors. They've been in the beef for a couple weeks now, but I'm going to leave that one go. The first one I want to talk about is the Corey Holcomb show. One of my favorite shows on YouTube. Corey Holcomb, Chicago comedian. And his two co-hosts are up-and-coming comedian named Craig Fax. And then in the middle of those two is, Darlene Ortiz. For those of you that don't know who Darlene Ortiz is, she's basically the first, if not one of the first, hip-hop baddies. Back in the 80s. She was Ice-T's girlfriend or wife or whatever. Ice-T, the rapper Ice-T. He's on the... most of y'all might know him for the character Finn on the show Law and Order SVU, sorry. Special Victims Unit. He's that character Finn, the streetwise cop on the show. And Darlene was like his girl. Like I said, I don't know if they were actually legally married, but that was his girl. She was on several of his album covers. Most notably, I think it's the Power video, the Power album cover. She's on one side, you just see her with her hand behind her back and whatnot, and high heels and scantily clad, like a bikini or something. But then, back in the day when you'd flip to the other side of the album cover, you would see she's got a Mossberg shotgun behind her back, holding it, in between her butt cheeks and whatnot. It's a classic album cover. A classic album cover. And so they're talking about LL Cool J. The rapper LL Cool J, you know him from, what is that, CSI? One of those CSI, from the CSI house. I believe it was Hawaii, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't watch the show that. I just catch it when I can. I'm not a big fan of it. But, it starts off with Corey Holcomb talking about how, he's like, I heard back in the day, he's like, I heard LL Cool J beat your ass. I heard LL Cool J could fight, he's like, and I ain't just hear that from no internet shit. Basically said he heard this from real people. Like LL got them things and would let them go when necessary. And he was talking about how he knocked out, from some reports, knocked out Jamie Foxx, the comedian Jamie Foxx, on the set of the movie that they were both in Any Given Sunday, about the NFL. And Darlene was like, no, LL, LL's like my age, blah, blah, blah. He's not quite 60 yet. He's like my age, and, he's still big and swole. I just saw him a couple years ago at some event. And it was just kind of weird to me to hear them talk about that, because they never mentioned how Darlene caught a stray from LL Cool J in the beef with Ice-T. LL and Ice-T used to have beef back in the day. From what I understand, it's still a beef. Like, they ain't cool to this day. for whatever. You know, I can see where LL, you know, they just ain't cool like that. You know, just, you know, because back in the day, you know, the first group of rappers, they were a little arrogant. And, you know, I can see where, you know, LL, pardon me with that, guys. I can see where, you know, they're probably not cool to this day, but the song was, well, okay, the song where LL, where Darlene called it straight from LL was on the I Shot Your remix with Fat Joe, Keith Murray, Prodigy from Mobb Deep, rest in peace, Prodigy, and a young Foxy Brown. LL's got the last verse, and he says, starts off the verse by saying this: "What the fuck? I thought I conquered the world. I crushed Mo D, Hammer, and Ice-T's girl." You know, it was like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because you know, Darlene was, I mean, like I said, she still looks good to be damn near 60. Still a good looking woman at you know, at her age. You know, and if you don't know, she's got a son with Ice-T, Tracy Jr. I mean, you know, I've actually spoken to Darlene on social media before. I mean, she doesn't like talk much about Ice-T or whatever. But, you know, she knows that album cover was, you know, is iconic, and she'll talk about it. She even said she redid it probably, you know, they redid the album cover probably 15 years ago on for some magazine or whatever. I mean, you know, like I said, I doubt she would do it now because you know, she's a grandmother, but, or, you know, probably should be. You know, because you know, Tracy Jr. or Tracy, her son with Ice-T, he's well into his 30s. And so, you know, and they're just talking about LL, like, you know, Corey's like, yeah, LL will beat your ass. I heard LL be whooping niggas. He got hands, blah, blah, blah. You know, and she was like, yeah, he still looks good and solid and swole up. I just saw him a couple years ago. It was just cringeworthy to me because they're like just going over the obvious. They're like, you know, dancing around the obvious. Like maybe, well, I'm sure Corey knew. I'm sure Corey knew or was aware of it, that they had beef. LL and Darlene's ex, and Darlene caught the stray in that song. You know, he's a little younger, so he probably never heard the song or wasn't aware of it. But yeah, that was a time, and I'm just listening like, oh wow, you know, she's got to talk, you know, glowingly of LL after he had beef with her ex. You know, well-known beef for her ex, and she caught that stray in that line. The song was where he's talking about where he crushed Mo D, Hammer, and Ice-T's girl was To the Break of Dawn. You know, he called Ice-T a little hip-hop raccoon because, you know, Ice-T used to have a ponytail back in the day. And it was just weird just watching it. I'm kind of cracking up, but like, I'm like, where's this going to go? You know, the clip ends and they don't, you know, say anything about it. It was just like, whew, you know what I'm saying? And, yeah, and then the other clip, this is the more serious one, and it's cringy and it's heartbreaking, and it's just basically boils down to some ignorance and silliness. Former NFL wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. out of LSU, he was on the Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark, Channing Crowder, and Fred Taylor. And he was talking about how he struggled he says he's okay, but he struggled to manage his $100 million contract, you know, with the Giants, you know, 5 years, $100 million, that's $20 million a year. And he broke it down. He was like, you know, 20 million, you know, so you're only getting 12 and blah, blah, blah. He was talking about taxes after all that. You got, you know, then, you know, he's like, you got to, you know, you invest, you save, blah, blah, blah. And you know, flaunt a little bit, you know, just talking about all that. And it was just like, I know I'm not listening to this man tell us that he struggled and, you know, to manage a contract that after after taxes, he's get $60 million. It was just like, are you really saying this? You know what I'm saying? And it was just like, that's, and well, I'll tell you what, I saw another clip. Forgot what it was, but there's actually people who's actually trying to empathize with him and feel sorry for him. I'm like, man, you blew $100 million, $60 million a year, or $60 million, $20, whatever it was, $12 million a year after taxes. You blew that. That's on you. That's on you. Because if you're, a regular hardworking individual, for a company or something, you might top out at $150 grand a year. 30 years, that's $4.5 million. Take off your taxes and whatnot. I don't know what the taxes is, depending on what you got or whatnot. But it's like, I ain't about to feel no sorry for Beckham Jr. because one, he played in New York. There's so many financial experts in New York you could have found to help you. The way you're dancing around on the field and fronting and shit. You're in the LSU locker room the year that Burrow and Jamar Chase and Jettas, won the title, smoked Clemson. You're giving people money in the locker room, slapping them on the ass and shit, for y'all alma mater. That was cute and cool, but it's like, give me $12 million liquid after taxes and whatnot, net after taxes and whatnot, and I'm going to make sure my family be straight. Plenty. He was saying something about, it's hard to get with, create generational wealth off of that. I'm like, how? His dad, Odell Beckham Sr., was roommate of Shaq's at LSU. It's like your dad could have called Shaq and helped you. And besides, you're just a pro athlete yourself. You can reach out and find Shaq. And be like, or any of those guys, Shaq, Magic, Tom Brady, somebody like, hey, how can I get more money, to create some generational wealth? I mean, he was sitting there really saying it was a struggle. I'm like, shit. Because one thing about getting money, the hardest way to make that kind of money is before you get it. But once you get that kind of money, everybody's willing to help you. You got to weed through the crackpots and whatnot, but for the most part, like I said, you king of the. I mean, you were bigger than your quarterback, Eli, who had 2 Super Bowls in New York. So you was lightweight king of New York when it came to New York football. Between the Jets and the Giants, it's like you couldn't find nobody to help you to manage that. Like I said, I mean, I don't, that certain ethnicity of people that's supposedly good with money, they're all throughout New York. They would have gladly helped you. Hell, call CNBC, Kramer, that one chick, Eisen, Sarah Eisen, is that her name? There's plenty, you're at CBN, the networks in damn New York. The Giants would have helped you find somebody to manage that. Like, so I don't, I'm just like, I just didn't get that. That was kind of cringe to hear, like, you fronting too damn much. I saw Shannon Sharp and Ocho talking about it, and it was just like, Shannon, like, for all we know about Shannon, what he did and blew that bag with that OnlyFans model, but it's like, dude does make good sense if you sit and listen to what he's saying. When he has to be a homegrown, OG, Unk type, has to do that for those little moments on his show with Ocho, he does it well. And it's like you can't blow that kind of bag or even talk about. It's just so unrelatable to hear. So how could you say something like that? Well, I don't know. Let me know what you think. Share in the comments what you think about that. Should we feel sorry for guys like that when they blow that kind of money? I mean, other than human, just, all right, I understand, but it's like, I got my own life to live, and not only that I got my own life to live, you own some other shit. Like, I'd like to see, 60 million liquid come to me, but, if it doesn't, it does. It doesn't. If it does, it does. I'll be ready for it and know what to do. I understand. Odell was, he's a much younger man than I am now, He was and he's he's younger than me anyway, so he was a much younger man now. But that was his second contract. What from what I understand, the NFL players I've met, what they call your get right contract. Yeah, get right, bruh. But then again, I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments and holler back at me. I always respond to comments, negative and positive. So let me know what you think, and I'll holler back at you. Peace.